Good morning. For many decades, the United States has led the world in science, technology, research, and development. Hostile individuals, organizations, and nation-states have taken note of our success. They increasingly attempt to profit from Americans' ingenuity by infiltrating our computer systems, stealing our intellectual property, and evading our controls on technology exports. When hackers gain unlawful access to computers, it can take them only a few minutes to steal discoveries that were produced by many years of work and many millions of dollars of investment. That type of activity does not just cause economic harm, it also threatens America's national security. Identifying and prosecuting computer hackers is a top priority of the Department of Justice. We're here today to announce that a federal grand jury in the Southern District of New York indicted 9 Iranians for conspiring to hack into computers and to defraud American and foreign universities, businesses, and government agencies. I want to caution you that an indictment is not a finding of guilt. In the American judicial system, defendants are presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty in court. This indictment alleges that the defendants worked on behalf of the Iranian government, specifically the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. They hacked the computer systems of approximately 320 universities in 22 countries. 144 of the university victims are American universities. The defendants stole research that cost those universities approximately $3.4 billion to procure and maintain. That stolen information was used by the Revolutionary Guard or sold for profit in Iran. The defendants worked for an organization known as the Mabna Institute, which 2 of the defendants founded for the stated purpose of helping Iranian universities access scientific research. Their work consisted of stealing research through illegal computer intrusions. The indictment charges 9 defendants for committing 7 federal crimes. The charges include computer fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy, and identity theft. I want to make 2 additional points before I turn the microphone over to United States Attorney Jeffrey Berman, who will provide more details about the allegations and the defendants. First, every sector of our economy is the target of malicious cyber attacks. Everyone who owns a computer needs to be vigilant to prevent attacks. Academic institutions are prime targets for foreign cyber criminals. Universities can thrive as marketplaces of ideas and engines of research and development only if their work is protected from theft. Now, the events described in this indictment highlight the need for universities and all other organizations to emphasize cybersecurity, increase threat awareness, and harden their computer networks. The second important point is that our work on this case is critically important because it will disrupt the activities of the Mabna Institute and it will deter similar crimes by other perpetrators. This indictment publicly identifies the conspirators, and this type of public identification helps to deter state-sponsored computer intrusions by stripping hackers of their anonymity and by imposing real consequences. Revealing the Mabna Institute's nefarious activities makes it harder for them to do business. Additionally, we're working with foreign law enforcement agencies and providing the private sector with information that will help to neutralize Mabna's hacking infrastructure. By bringing these criminal charges, we reinforce the norm that most of the civilized world accepts. Nation-states should not steal intellectual property for the purpose of giving domestic industries a competitive advantage. As a result of the indictment, these defendants are now fugitives from justice. There are more than 100 countries where they may face arrest and extradition to the United States. And thanks to the Treasury Department, the defendants will find it difficult to engage in business or financial transactions outside of Iran. By making clear that criminal actions have consequences, We deter schemes to victimize the United States and its companies and its citizens, and we help to protect our foreign allies. In summary, the United States is taking several coordinated actions to coincide with unsealing this indictment. We are imposing financial sanctions on the individual defendants and the Mabna Institute. We are releasing information about cyber vulnerabilities, which will help private sector organizations protect themselves. And we are enlisting the assistance of international law enforcement partners. I am grateful to Secretary Stephen Mnuchin for using the Treasury Department's authorities to reinforce the criminal charges. I also want to thank United States Attorney Jeffrey Berman, Assistant Attorney General John Demers, FBI Director Christopher Wray, and the many Department of Justice employees, agents, prosecutors, and support personnel who worked to secure this important indictment. I'd like now to introduce our United States Attorney from Southern New York, Jeff Berman.
Thank you, Rod. Good morning. My name is Jeffrey Berman, and I am the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York. Today, in one of the largest state-sponsored hacking campaigns ever prosecuted by the Department of Justice, we have unmasked criminals who normally work in total anonymity, hiding behind the ones and zeros of computer code. This massive and brazen cyber assault on the computer systems of 144 U.S. universities, 176 foreign universities in 21 countries, and dozens of government organizations and private companies. This assault was conducted on behalf of the Iranian government's Islamic Revolutionary Guard, or IRGC. As the indictment alleges, the defendants were leaders and operators of the Mabna Institute, an Iranian company that conducted this assault at the behest of the IRGC and then sold the illegal fruits of its hacking. The company was set up in 2013 by two defendants, Gholam Reza Rafat-Najad and Ehsan Mohammadi. And while the company's name may sound legitimate, this so-called institute was set up for one reason only: to steal scientific resources from other countries from around the world. The defendants' global campaign operated in three parts: a university campaign, private company hacks, and non-governmental entity hacks. With respect to the university campaign, from 2013 to 2017, the defendants targeted more than 100,000 accounts of university professors around the world, and by tricking professors to click on false links, compromised 8,000 accounts. Once they gained access to these accounts, the defendants stole massive amounts of academic data and intellectual property. The universities combined had to pay $3.4 billion to access this information. The defendants got it for free. They targeted data and research from all fields, including science and technology, engineering, social science, medical, and other professional fields. In total, they stole at least 31.5 terabytes of data. That's over 15 billion pages, and sent that data back to computers they controlled outside of the United States. And to be clear, this is not just raw data. This is in the innovations and intellectual property of some of our country's greatest minds. The second part of the campaign targeted at least 36 private sector companies in the United States and at least 11 companies based in foreign countries. The hackers targeted firms and companies across sectors: law firms, technology companies, consulting companies, financial services firms, healthcare companies, biotechnology companies, and others. Once they gained access, the defendants, among other things, stole entire email mailboxes from the victims. They even set up rules in the stolen accounts to secretly forward all new emails to the defendants. The third and very troubling part of the hacking campaign targeted U.S. government and non-governmental organizations. Among their victims, the U.S. Department of Labor, the United Nations, and even the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. That is the agency that regulates the interstate transmission of electricity, natural gas, and oil. That agency has the details of some of this country's most sensitive infrastructure. We believe that all 9 defendants are currently in Iran, and I have a message for them and for others who attempt to harm our country through cyber assaults. We have worked tirelessly to identify you, and you cannot hide behind a keyboard halfway around the world and expect not to be held to account. Together with our law enforcement partners, we will work relentlessly and creatively to apply the legal tools at our disposal to unmask and charge you. We will do all we can to bring you to justice. While these defendants remain at large, they are now fugitives from the American judicial system. These defendants are no longer free to travel outside of Iran without the fear of being arrested and extradited to the United States. They cannot leave Iran to conduct business. The only way they can see the rest of the world is through their computer screen, but now stripped of their greatest asset, anonymity. Do not forget, at the crux of this case is the fact that the government of Iran systematically and methodically hacked into our country's computer networks with the intent to steal as much information as possible. But as clever as these alleged criminals thought they were ultimately detected and identified by the most sophisticated, capable, and advanced law enforcement in the world. In that regard, I want to thank the FBI, represented here by Deputy Director David Bowdish, and our good friend Bill Sweeney, Assistant Director in charge of the New York Field Office of the FBI. Their work in this case has been extraordinary, and we are very lucky to have them as partners. I would also like to thank the prosecutors of my office who investigated and prosecuted this case. I want to thank our Criminal Division Chief, Lisa Zornberg, for her leadership and excellent supervision of this case. I want to thank the co-head of our Complex Frauds and Cybercrime Unit, Timothy Howard, who has great expertise and knowledge in the area of cybercrime and who spearheaded this investigation and prosecution. Mr. Howard was ably assisted by 2 of our excellent AUSAs, Richard Cooper and Jonathan Cohen. And I would also like to thank Michael Ferrara, who supervised the case as co-head of the Complex Fraud and Cybercrime Unit. It is a privilege and quite humbling to be working alongside such talented and dedicated public servants. I would now like to introduce the next speaker, the Deputy Director, David Bowdish.
Thank you. Good morning. First of all, as Mr. Berman mentioned, I am David Bowdish, the Deputy Director. I'm also representing the FBI here as the Assistant Director of the New York Field Office, Bill Sweeney. If I could, I would have all the FBI agents and analysts, certainly from the New York Field Office as well as around the globe, that assisted with this investigation. I would have them here to show them the appreciation for all the work and the tireless man hours that they put into this investigation, nights, weekends, as well as the prosecutors. The FBI, as you know, is charged with defending the United States against a full range of cyber crimes. We face cyber threats from hackers for hire, organized cyber syndicates, and state-sponsored hackers like the individuals who are indicted today. State-sponsored hackers steal our government's secrets, our trade secrets, our technology, and our ideas for military and competitive advantage. The individuals we're indicting today were leaders, contractors, associates, hackers for hire, or affiliates of the Mabna Institute, a private government contractor based in Iran. the Mabna Institute engaged in the hacking at the behest of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Through a more than 4-year campaign, these state-sponsored hackers compromised approximately 144 U.S.-based universities and 176 foreign universities in 21 countries. They targeted more than 100,000 email accounts of professors around the world and ultimately were able to compromise more than 8,000 of those accounts. Scholarly research, innovative private sector ideas, and personal email account information belonging to the targeted victims was accessed and exploited. In the end, the information retrieved from the academic databases alone during the course of this operation cost the affected U.S.-based higher learning institutions, as you've already heard, it cost them approximately $3.4 billion to procure and access. The subscriptions of these databases are funded in part by taxpayer your dollars and student tuition. This means people in our country were paying for services when nation-state actors were consuming for free. And just in case you're wondering, they're not admiring our work. They're stealing it, and they're taking credit for it, and they're selling it to others. They also targeted and compromised email accounts for roughly 36 U.S.-based private companies and 11 private companies overseas using a massive password spray attack and a low and slow style of brute force attack that flies under the radar of many security protocols used by companies. And they targeted and compromised email accounts for various government and non-governmental organizations, including the Department of Labor, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, the states of Hawaii and Indiana, and even the United Nations. When we learned of these attacks, we notified the victims so they could take actions to minimize the impact. We took action to find and stop these hackers. Now, some may ask, why would you pursue people you were never get your hands on? True, apprehending these individuals presents a challenge. This has been discussed previously, but it is not impossible. We've done it before. We'll do it again. People travel. They take vacations. They make plans with their families. And having your name, face, and description on a wanted poster makes moving freely much more difficult. And where we cannot apprehend these individuals easily and quickly, we will resort to different methods, such as naming and shaming, sanctions, and a lot of publicity. And we'll keep at it because the FBI and our partners at the Department of Justice have a very long memory, and the long arm of the law reaches worldwide. We couldn't have gotten this far without the courage and cooperation of our victims. We understand that companies and institutions may be reluctant to report breaches that many believe notifying authorities will hurt their competitive advantage or damage their reputation. We do not want companies or universities or individuals to be victimized a second time by an investigation. We will minimize the disruption to their daily routine, and we will safeguard their privacy. When necessary, we will seek protective orders to preserve trade secrets and business confidentiality. But maintaining a code of silence will not serve anyone in this country in the long run. We want to thank our partners in the United Kingdom's National Crime Agency and the Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control. We'll continue to work together and to use every tool at our disposal to fight cyber espionage, to protect our innovation, our ideas, and our information. And we all need to do our part to make sure that our systems are as strong and secure and protected as possible. We cannot stress enough to the American public, to our business owners, to our academic institution across the board, the importance of good cyber hygiene and the use of strong passwords as well as multi-factor authentication. We have to do whatever we can together to lay hands on these people, to deter others from joining the fray, and to keep our people and our networks safe. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Siegel Mandelker, and I'm the Undersecretary of Treasury for Terrorism and Financial Intelligence. Today, along with the Department of Justice's indictment, the U.S. Department of the Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control is designating 1 Iranian entity and 10 Iranian individuals under Executive Order 13694 for significant malicious cyber-enabled activities. Specifically, today, we are sanctioning the Mabna Institute. As you have heard, it's an Iran-based company that contracted with Iranian governmental and private entities to conduct hacking activities on their behalf. The Mabna Institute conducted massive, coordinated cyber intrusions into the computer systems of over 300 universities worldwide, including 144 institutions right here in the United States. This was done at the behest of the Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, which outsourced the theft of intellectual property, research, and data to the Mabna Institute and their hackers for hire. The IRGC plays a central role in Iran's malign activities across the world, including fomenting terrorism. In October of last year, we sanctioned the IRGC under our terrorism authorities for providing material support for the IRGC's Quds Force, the key Iranian entity enabling Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's relentless campaign of brutal violence against his own people, as well as the lethal activities of Hezbollah, Hamas, and other terrorist groups. The IRGC has been designated 4 times over here in the United States, and they've also been designated in the European Union and by the UN. The Mabna Institute's deceptive scheme allowed the IRGC to infiltrate and obtain valuable information from universities in the United States and 21 other countries, including the United Kingdom, Germany, Canada, Australia, Israel, Japan, South Korea, China, and other countries. OFAC is also designating 9 individuals who were leaders, contractors, associates, hackers for hire, and other affiliates of the Mabna Institute. In addition to the actions we are taking against Mabna, OFAC also is designating Iranian national Behzad Mesri, who compromised multiple user accounts belonging to a U.S. media and entertainment company and then engaged in an attempt to extort the victim company for $6 million. As a result of today's action, all property and interests in property of the designated persons subject to U.S. jurisdiction are blocked, and U.S. persons are generally prohibited from engaging in transactions with them. Persons that knowingly conduct significant transactions with these designated persons are also subject to our secondary sanctions. The cyber breaches that we are taking action against today are just the latest extraordinary example of the Iranian regime's willingness to use cyber-enabled and other illicit means to enrich itself and attack companies and countries across the globe. This kind of activity and the number of countries and entities that were victimized should send a message around the world about Iran's continued deceptive practices. Yet it should come as no surprise. The Iranian regime continually attempts to flout our laws and those of our allies and partners. For example, just a few months ago, we took concerted action against an IRGC Quds Force counterfeit scheme that aimed to corrupt the international financial system, including by circumventing European export controls. Likewise, the IRGC, which again outsourced these hacks, continues to have an extensive presence in Iran's economy and benefits from Iran's near total lack of transparency in its financial sector. As the Financial Action Task Force, or FATF, highlighted just last month, there continues to be massive deficiencies in Iran's anti-money laundering, countering the financing of terrorism regime. For over a decade, Iran has failed to fulfill its international AML CFT obligations at the FATF. As part of this administration's Iran strategy, we are committed to using our authorities to combat the regime's deception and its efforts to corrupt the international financial system. Under this administration, OFAC has issued 11 tranches of sanctions, designating 108 targets in the Middle East, Asia, and Europe in connection with the IRGC, Iran's support for terrorism, its ballistic missile programs, its human rights abuses, its censorship, its transnational criminal activity, and its cyber attacks. We will continue to hold the IRGC and Iranian cyber actors accountable for their malign activity, including these ongoing, costly, and malicious cyber attacks. I want to thank the Justice Department and the FBI for their close coordination and their terrific work on this action, and I want to thank the tremendous career officials at OFAC who worked tirelessly with us on this coordinated action.
Mr. Berman or Mr. Rosenstein, can you tell us this? You say this has been going on for 4 or 5 years. How did you get onto it?
It was really the hard work, excellent work of the FBI, and that's how it started, and we pursued it from there.
Mr. Bowdish, maybe you can tell us a little more about what alerted you to this.
Sir, I'm going to actually have to defer to our Assistant Director in charge to answer that one.
People who know me from New York know I won't answer on the techniques or the tactics. The team that worked is very effective. There's a lot of victims that come forward. Different techniques take place, but I don't want to get into the specifics of how we did it.
Generally, without going into specifics, and I understand that, was it the victims that alerted you to this? They came to you and said, help us find this?
I would have to get back to you on that, on specific victims.
I think the answer is a combination of both. That in some cases, victims came forward, and we encourage, as Deputy Director Bowdish said, we encourage victims to come forward and report to the FBI. You can report any violation to the nearest FBI field office. We encourage victims to come forward because we can help. We can help resolve current attack, and we can help prevent future attacks, and that's why we rely upon victim cooperation. But in many cases, we actually notified the victims because the FBI has superb cyber experts. And for understandable reasons, we don't talk about exactly who they are and what they do, but we have tremendous capability within the FBI to detect cyber intrusions and to combat them. And so there are many cases in which the FBI actually develops this evidence and then presents it to the victims so that they can take appropriate remedial action. Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
Are there sort of specific palpable examples of where the fruits of the theft manifested themselves in some way, where you saw design plans that were stolen and then something was constructed based out of that, or research that was republished under somebody else's name?
So we're not going to talk about anything beyond what's in the public indictment. If we get to the sentencing stage, with regard to any defendant, we would have specific evidence concerning the loss and the significance of the losses. The victims obviously are free to make their own independent decisions about whether to come forward, either for regulatory or other reasons, and to take appropriate actions to protect their customers. But we're not going to be talking about any details beyond what's in the indictment.
Can you explain a little bit more about the linkage to the IRGC? You said there are contracts. It seems almost hard to believe that somebody would write a contract to have someone else hack something for them. Are you saying those what the contracts say, please steal this information from various U.S. universities?
What's alleged in the indictment is that the Mabin Institute was working essentially as a contractor for the Iranian government. We don't have any details in the indictment, so I'm not going to be able to give you any details about what evidence we have to prove that. But the allegation in the indictment is that the evidence will demonstrate that the Mabin Institute was working on behalf of the IRGC and that the IRGC benefited from the information that was stolen through the cyber hacking. Yes, ma'am.
Sure. As we stand here right now, the city of Atlanta is the victim of a ransomware attack, and there are some concerns that the federal government is not doing enough to sort of prevent and deter these kinds of attacks. I know you have a task force, and I know the FBI, the DOJ, they say these name and shame kind of cases deter, but I haven't seen in this administration or the previous one where this kind of stuff has deterred the Russians, the Chinese, or the Iranians. So can you say specifically what is the federal government doing to sort of deter these kinds of attacks and to protect American businesses and infrastructure?
A lot into the question. This administration is in its second year. And we are doing quite a lot. I'm not going to speak to what has or hasn't been done historically. You don't see the attacks that have been deterred. You only see the ones that haven't been deterred. And I can tell you that what we're doing through our task force and through the work of our partner agencies is that we are working together to pursue every lead. And we're encouraging private sector victims to come forward and give us this information. We're going to keep returning indictments when we can. Of course, some of the indictments are unsealed, and we make a decision based upon the facts and circumstances whether to unseal an indictment, as we're doing today. We have other cases that are not public, but in which we're working actively and pursuing charges. So we're going to continue to pursue this strategy. We're going to continue to pursue this whole of government approach, which you see here by virtue of Treasury's involvement, and I think that it will have an impact. We know it's going to have an impact. Law enforcement's about specific and general deterrence, and we're going to have a specific deterrent impact on the people who are blocked as a result of this case, and we're going to have a general deterrent impact because we are spreading the word that anybody who attacks America is going to face an appropriate response, coordinated response by the United States government. Thank you very much. Thank you.